Here we go with the detailed tutorial of threading your brother serger. This particular machine is thread from right to left. So we're going to start over here on the far right. You'll notice that the first, second, and third thread guides are actually the same for all four spools. First thing you'll want to do is pull the thread up from the back through the 1, around the 2, and then through the hole, which is instruction number 3 on your machine. Instruction 4 over here on the far right, blue dial, is to run the thread through the channel, ultimately looping it around the hook, which is number 5. 6 and 7 are a tiny bit tricky here, so you'll want to note that your thread needs to run underneath both of those thread guides. I find the dots to be most helpful here. And after you run it through the left side, you'll just want to loop it around the hook, which is number 8. Number 9 is a lever that pulls out the looper arm. And from here, you'll notice that there is a thread guide for number 10 that the thread has to loop around. Still working with that looper arm for number 11, there's a hole that needs to be thread going from front to back. Here's where I like to get out my tweezers that came with the machine because they're going to be the most helpful tool in order for you to successfully execute this step. I utilize my left hand here with the tweezers to navigate the thread underneath that arm with the upper looper there and back through the back of the machine. With the lower looper threading complete, let's move on to that upper looper, which is the second spool from the right. And again, just as a reminder, steps 1, 2, and 3 are the same as before, and we're going to be running the channel through the green thread dial. Back to front through number 1, around number 2, through the number 3 hole in the top of the machine. Number 4 is going to be down through the green channel. Number 5 is the hook along the green instruction here. And then number 6 is going to be the first of those stacked thread guides. Make sure here that you put the thread only through number 6, only underneath the first one of that double stacked thread guide. Then here we're moving to number 7, which is just a hook. Number 8 is going to be the upper looper hole. Once you thread that hole, you want to make sure that you pull the thread straight back through the back of the machine. Now the upper looper is a go, and so we're going to move on to that right needle, which is the third spool of thread from the right. The same first 3 steps are going to be making sure you bring the thread from back to front through thread guide number 1, around thread guide number 2, and through the hole in the top, which is thread guide number 3. Then you're going to use the channel for the pink dial and pull that down through the channel. Following the instructions on the machine, we are going to move the thread along the thread path, wrapping it around number 5 and to the right of the thread guide. The next thread guide here is right above the needle. You want to make sure that you don't skip that one because that'll help make sure that that thread's perfectly straight right before it gets to the needle. Now we're just going to simply thread the needle on the right. After we thread it, what you'll want to do is make sure that you pull the thread all the way through. I like to use the tweezers because it just makes life a little bit easier. And then you want to make sure you put it under the presser foot and pull it back through the back of the machine. Now moving on to our last spool, which is the one on the far left. Steps 1, 2, and 3 are going to be exactly the same as before, and we're going to run this particular thread for step number 4 through that orange channel. So back to front through number 1, around number 2, and then we're going to pull it through the hole in the top, which is number 3, down the channel for number 4, up and around for 5. We're going on the left side of this thread guide here, and then don't forget to hit that last thread guide right above the needle before you thread it. For this next step here, we're going to put the thread through the eye of the needle on the left. Again, I really like using the tweezers here. It just makes life a little bit easier again, so that way you can pull that thread through pretty easily. Make sure you place it underneath the presser foot and then pull it back through the back of the machine. You should have all threads pulling to the back at this point. Once I'm done threading, I like to run a chain just to be proud of myself, make sure everything's working. And then I grab me some test fabric and run it through.